And we go on now to a very different subject, and I'm hoping Sarah Langston is with us now. Sarah, are you there? Yes? Great. Okay, good. So our next item on the agenda is a panel on registry and registrar relations, optimizing sales channels. And we're going to hear from Sarah Langston, who will then be going on to introduce her panel participants. Sarah is, of course, the Director of Product Management at VeriSign. Some of you will have seen her up here on the stage yesterday as well. She also works with the naming services and VIS services provided by VeriSign. She's been involved in the ISP and Internet software industry for nearly 20 years. She's currently spearheading VeriSign's new GTLD services, and she's also an active member of the ICANN community. Very nice to have you back with us today, Sarah. Welcome. Okay, and Sarah is not mic'd yet. Sure. Do you haben Sie einen Anstieg? Yeah. He's coming with your microphone.
Hello? Hello. This is what Madonna feels like. I always wondered. So thank you so much for joining our registry and registrar relations panel this morning, talking about how we can optimize sales channels. So a very important stakeholder within this whole new GTLD process is, of course, the registrar channel. And as a registry, one of the questions that I'm asked most by potential applicants is, what do I need to do to make sure that a registrar carries my TLD within its portfolio? And what pitfalls do I need to avoid? And this is an example of one of the questions that we can ask our very distinguished panel this morning. Our panelists have a wealth of experience in the domain name industry. And I think we've got a very nice mix of experts for you to ask questions of, because we have people representing the registrar community, representing the registry community, and we also have a representative from ICANN. So let me start by giving an introduction to the panelists, and I'll start on my left and move down. So welcome to Thorsten Smeets. Thorsten is COO, Chief Operating Officer of Key Systems. And Key Systems is an ISP and hosting company that was founded in 1998. And it received its first accreditation from ICANN all the way going back to the year 2000. Now, the company is based in Germany, but it has subsidiaries in both the USA and in Mexico. And they provide services to its end customers and resellers through 3 domain portals. The I'll say them anyway, rrpproxy.net, brandshelter.com, and domaindiscount24.com. Sitting next to Thorsten, we have Stefan Legner. Now, since September 2010, Stefan has been responsible for product and project management at InterNetX. They're an international wholesale company for domain names, security products, server solutions, and data services. And he and his entire team focus on defining effective products and having them developed efficiently to meet the requirements of their resellers, their registrars, owners of large domain portfolios, and many other professional types of customers. He likes to describe this role as a no-excuse position. I think we've all been there. Mr. Legner has held board and management positions with the internet and telecommunication company Strato, Colt, based in Frankfurt, Teldefax in Marburg, and Siemens in Munich itself. He's also a member of the supervisory board of the German CCTLD registry, DNIC, and he works as a management consultant. Mr. Legner has been involved with TLD domains, ICANN processes, and the launch processes for new GTLD since 2003. And he had an enormous journey to get here this morning because he's based all the way in Munich. Welcome, Stefan. Sitting next to Stefan is Mike Zupke. Now, Mike joined ICANN's Registrar Liaison team in October 2005. And he is responsible for the development and the implementation of registrar programs and policies that help protect registrants and promote a fair and competitive domain name marketplace. His recent projects at ICANN have included the creation of an online registrar training program, and he works towards operational readiness following the launch of new TLDs. Mike enjoys trend spotting and data analysis, and he has become one of ICANN's resident experts in the domain name marketplace. Before joining ICANN, Mike practiced law and managed a small legal services firm, and he's currently admitted to the bar in his home state of Massachusetts. And sitting next to Mike is Steve Heflin. Welcome, Steve. Steve is Vice President of Sales and previously Senior Director of Business Development at Afilias. He is in charge of business development, of registry and other related services, with extensive experience in all aspects of domain names, including registrar and registry expertise of GTLDs, CCTLDs, and sponsored TLDs. Steve is a veteran of the domain name industry with over a decade of experience in the industry. You wouldn't believe it looking at that baby face. He brings a unique perspective from both the domain name registry and the registrar marketplaces. And prior to joining Afilias, Steve was actually the co-founder and president of Domain Bank, which was one of the first domain name registrars to be created after the industry's deregulation in 1999. His roots in internet architecture go deep because he also founded one of the first ISPs in eastern Pennsylvania at the age of 25. So I think you'll agree we have a great panel to be able to answer any questions that you may have about optimizing your sales channels. Now, the ICANN accredited registrar channel and all of its resellers are, of course, a fundamental component of the distribution and the management of domain names between registries and registrants. And there are currently around 900 ICANN-accredited registrars throughout the globe. And certainly at VeriSign, we very much rely on that channel to distribute and to promote our existing TLDs. So right at the start, I thought it would be good to ask the panel what they think about the new GTLD round, what they believe the benefits are to themselves, and perhaps to the wider industry in general. Thorsten, perhaps if you could start.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I thought about this, and we heard so much about the change that the new GTLD program will bring to us, to the industry, and to users worldwide. And I came out with the idea that this whole new approach is a big change, not only for global users, but most importantly also for the registrars and for the sales channel they work with. I would like to initially look at the whole buying cycle that the domain goes through, from the production at registry level, through the channel, through the registrars, to the registrant at the end of the buying cycle. And I think that our retail model that we have in place is way overaged, because we still have this monopolistic buying cycle in place that is already no longer in place when you look at the general trade, or especially the food trade. We still have these strong producers with their monopolistic offers, and we have rather a weak wholesale and a weak retail. So we as registrars are depending on the registries and their offers, and we can only sell their fixed set of TLDs, and most importantly, we can only sell the pricing that they offer to us. And we could see the power of the registries in the last years when all GTLDs raised their prices. What we see now is new, and this is probably the biggest change in the general program, because registrars are repositioned, and we become now more important in the buying cycle, because registrars and the sales channels have now the power to choose what will we sell, to decide, I would like to offer this new extension to my customers, and I would like to not offer this extension, and the limiting factor here is the resources that we have in place to implement. So I think there's a complete new world that we are living in right now. I think when we're talking about more than 1,000 new GTLDs, it's quite sure that only probably 100 will be successful, or successful under the conditions that we see right now. And if you take out brands who will not be sold to customers or to registrants, or most likely not be sold to registrants, and if you may also take out the GeoTLDs, let's say .Munich, which might also be a success in their own geographical area, I think that when we look at generic domain names, we have a changed world, and so it's a great topic to talk about today. Thank you.
Stefan, perhaps you would like to talk about the benefits to you and perhaps to the industry as a whole of the new GTLD program.
Yeah, sure. You might not be surprised, as being a registrar and having to sell domains as a core business, we very much welcome this new GTLD initiative. It adds variety to the market. Nobody knows what it really will be in the future, which TLDs will be accepted, which not, what new business models could develop from new TLDs. However, it's our core business, and we are very happy to prepare ourselves for bringing all these new TLDs into the market, as far as the registrars are requested by the registries to use their sales channels, which will be a topic right now. So we are happy, we are preparing, we're closely following what's going on, and we are very excited to have it all in place by the end of next year.
Thank you, Stefan. Mike, perhaps you would like to talk about what you think the benefits are.
Certainly happy to. And so obviously, as a member of ICANN staff, what new TLDs mean to me is probably something a lot different than most everyone in this room. But I can speak on a personal level. The thing that excites me about new TLDs is the sort of innovation that we'll see. And just looking at the last presentation in here, I'm excited. I think that TLDs will be used in new ways, and I think that's really what this next round is about. But when I think about how TLDs are important to people, or the new TLDs will be important to people in this room, the other thing that really excites me is seeing how currently underserved communities will be able to have a bigger reach on the internet and have a bigger voice on the internet. And I think in particular with internationalized domain names, but in other ways too. And so I think that that's really what I find the most exciting, and I think probably one of the greatest uses, and perhaps being in Germany, this may be of critical interest to people here, that new communities that are traditionally underserved will have these opportunities through new TLDs.
Thanks. And Steve?
To me, I guess probably the biggest thing I see as a benefit is it's just going to be more choices. It's choices for end users, communities, businesses. It's choices for registrars. Touching on some of the other comments that my other panelists made, there will be innovation. A year from now, if we do this conference again, you may find out that there's another TLD that's now the biggest one in the world. That's very possible in this. So to me, I think it's about choices, and there's going to be innovation, and this is pretty exciting. Certainly better than there only being ComNet.org, Biz, and Info.
Thanks, everybody. And I know that there are going to be potential applicants in this room that really are going to want to ask you, what do they have to do to make sure that you carry your TLD within their portfolio when they're designing their business rules? What do they need to be cognizant of in order to be able to get you to put that on your roadmap? Perhaps, Thorsten, if I could ask you that question.
Wow, that's a big field. Are we having registrars and new TLDs in the room? Okay, so I'm not telling secrets then.
Oh, do.
I mean, there are several angles from which you can look at this. I think most importantly is the price. The extension should not be at a ridiculously high level. We see some examples already out there that are probably too high priced and therefore not successful. Apart from price, I think we have to mention the technical aspects. Registry should use industry standards in talking to the registrars. API, EPP connections should be like a basis for the business. Third, I think, is marketing and a given strategy to talk to the global public or to at least have a target audience. I think, and I just wanted to add, of course, I'm also thrilled about this and very excited to see these new GTLDs coming out. I think the general approach on this should be that a community is searching for their name to be expressed, to have an identity, and the other way around will not work, that a generic name is searching for its community. This will not work. So yeah, we have marketing, we have like the 4 Ps, price, place, promotions and stuff, product, the usual set of marketing actions you have to take, technical aspects, and I'm very open for suggestions from future registries why I should sell their TLD.
Thank you. And Stefan, it seems like a good question to ask you too. If I'm a prospective new GTLD applicant and I'm looking to the ICANN accredited registrar channel to distribute my TLD, what kind of things do I need to be cognizant of when I'm designing my TLD, the business rules? How can I make sure that it falls within your sweet spot?
Yes, I want to begin with the role of the registrar. I don't know whether everybody knows, but there will be probably a lot of new TLDs out which do not need a registrar. If it's a brand and if it's only a few domains used within this TLD, there won't be the need of a registrar, and also ICANN also doesn't force to have registrars in place in this case. But as soon as the domains shall be given to a broader public, the registrars come into the game. And to have these registrars to put this domain into the sales channel and offer it to a broad public, it's its various aspects, which Thorsten already mentioned. It's the financial aspect, the marketing aspect, it's the technical aspect. Let's look at it from the financial aspect first. In my opinion, this TLD has to be looked at in a long term from the perspective of the registry. So if a new TLD comes to the market, we all know that a lot of money is needed to have it in place for the first domain. The registry should not think to have it refinanced from the sold domain very quickly. This would be a piece of advice from me. So you should think of it in a long-term perspective. ICANN wants you to have a business plan for 10 years, and if you look at the existing registries, it's the long-term business. It's the renewal rates and the long-term which makes the return on investment. On the other hand, for the registrar side, bringing this the information about the new TLD and about the processes of these new TLD into the public is a huge marketing effort which they have to deal with. So if a registry wants to be successful in the longer run, it should give incentives to registrars, especially for the initial marketing activities they have to do. This might be, there are examples in the past for reduced fees for TLDs in the beginning, for marketing kickbacks, for good prepared marketing stuff, which is given to the registrars, which makes it easier for them to bring the information to the public, and especially to bring the right information to the public. So this is from the financial side. From the operational side, if you look at larger domain numbers, it is very important to allow the registrars to have, wherever possible, fully automated processes. There are very good examples on the market today with very experienced registries which allow to have everything automated and to handle large quantities of domain orders and domain administration fairly easy. So it's a good advice if you as a new registry keep to the already established technologies, protocols, command sets which all the registrars are familiar with and which facilitates to implement new TLDs into their portfolios. I might give you a small example. If we as a large registrar, if we integrate a new TLD into our portfolio right now, it costs us, if it's an established feature set, if it's an established registry, something like 1 or 2 days, if we concentrate on it, to have a new TLD integrated in our portfolio. But this is only true if there are no exceptional extensions, if standard EPP is used, and so on. So it's possible to have it done very quickly. If a registry decides to make it very complicated, different from the others, because they are so very different like the others, then they probably don't do themselves a favor, and they make it unnecessarily difficult for the registrars to have this domain in its portfolio, and therefore the market channel probably won't work.
Thank you, Stefan. So there seems to be a message loud and clear that says make sure that you give us enough time to be able to implement these things, and make sure, based on what Thorsten says, make sure that they meet industry standards, and that they're not going to, the implementation of them isn't going to require for you to do a lot of configuration to your technical systems. Steve, looking at it from the other side, the registry that actually provides these TLDs for the likes of Thorsten and Stefan to distribute, what are the things that, the processes that you go through when you're getting a TLD ready for launch?
For us, it's all about planning. You got to make sure that you have, well, number one, a value proposition. It isn't just about giving the registrar the lowest price or some attractive price. The TLD has to have some attraction to it. There has to be some sizzle to it that will drive demand for it. You could give it away for free if you want, but if nobody wants it because it just doesn't have any appeal to end users, it's not going to do you any good. By the same token, if you have a highly coveted TLD and you decide you want to charge an incredibly high price for it, something that's much higher than perhaps other standard prices from other comparative TLDs, you could run into problems with that as well, whereas people won't adopt it. So for a registry like us, we look for the value proposition and then proper planning, giving the registrars predictable and realistic timelines. That's key as well. You can't tell them, look, you got 90 days to implement this. It's incredibly complicated. I apologize, but that's the way it is. You got to try to be as accommodating for your own distribution channel as you can, so that you can get the most throughput or the most out of them when it comes to the actual business.
Thank you, Steve. And I think Stefan talked a little bit before about the potential for new GTLDs to vertically integrate, and we won't go into that in too much detail, but basically this is where you have a single registry, a single registrar, and a single registrant. Mike, for folks in the audience that may be interested in becoming a ICANN accredited registrar, perhaps to service the needs of some of these new GTLDs, can you talk us a little bit through the processes that they need to go through when they're making this consideration?
Certainly. So I think in the realm of vertically integrated registries and registrars, there will be some process changes to our existing process, but today the way that it works, it's a pretty straightforward process to become an ICANN accredited registrar. There's an application which is on our website. The application fee is $4,000 US. There's a certain capital liquidity requirement. But in general, we're looking for some similar things that are in the registry application. We're looking for, the background check. We're looking for operational capabilities and those sorts of things. And just as there is in the registry market, there are also back-end providers of registrar services. And so those who are interested in becoming a registrar don't necessarily need to have all of the technical expertise in-house. And just as some background, in making this decision whether or not to become a registrar, I can share a little bit of background about the Registrar Marketplace. I pulled some statistics this morning. We currently have 994 ICANN accredited registrars. And if you look at historically, that's as large as we've ever had of a Registrar Marketplace. You look back to December '98, there was one registrar. December 2003, there were fewer than 200, and so now we're hitting this high point. And to be honest, I didn't predict this. I thought we would see a little bit less interest in becoming a registrar, as there was greater interest in becoming a registry. But instead, I think the opposite is true. In just year to date, we've had 56 new entities become ICANN accredited. So there's tremendous growth right now in the Registrar Marketplace, and I have to imagine that quite a bit of that is interest in serving new TLDs. That's not exclusively it. I think we're also seeing growth in growing parts of the world. We're seeing, we've got registrars now in 61 different countries, and dozens of languages are represented by these registrars. So, I'd be happy afterward to talk more specifically about the application process, but I think, I would also look to the current marketplace. I think that the question has been asked, how do I get on a registrar's front page in order to have my TLD stand out? And I think that another question may be, how do I find registrars who would be interested in my TLD? I think that if you look right now, I did a count. I found 4 registrars who only sell non-legacy TLDs, and I found 5 registrars who are only selling 1 TLD. So I think that there's quite a lot of diversity already in the Registrar Marketplace that I would look to as you're thinking about your sales channels.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks very much. And I just wanted to touch very briefly on IDN, or internationalized domain names, because obviously they represent a huge opportunity for non-Latin based languages and really improve the global accessibility of the internet with their introduction. And obviously we have IDN scripts to the left of the dot and have done for many years. Some CCTLDs now have them at the left and the right of the dot, rather newly. And within this new GTLD round, you're going to be able to see generic TLDs that have IDNs represented both sides of the dot. Just really quickly, Thorsten, do you see a lot of demand? And I'm not just talking about GTLDs specifically, but within CCTLDs, because you would think that that could be a trend that we would see within the GTLD space.
I think that Key Systems, my company, belongs to the registrars with the most IDN domain names under management, especially with .com. Sarah, we have quite a few of them. However, I think generally it's difficult to sell IDNs to a market that it used to use ASCII script. Now, it's another thing when we look at the Arabic countries and when we look like at the Russian script. I think that there will be niche markets where IDN extensions can be very successful, especially when we apply the vertical integrated approach. So I'm quite sure that there will be successful IDN domain names, IDN.IDN, but where this marketplace will be and who will provide that niche, I don't know yet. But I'm looking very forward to see these new extensions coming up, because I think this is like the core of the whole program, to bring identity and to provide underserved communities with their string.
Thank you. Stefan, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I personally regard this IDN subject very, very interesting. I remember with the ICANN meeting in Seoul, I explicitly went to some Koreans and wanted to show me how they enter internet addresses into the keyboard. And I learned that the Korean alphabet is very, very close in structure to the German alphabet. However, they always have to switch keyboard. And they were very, very experienced in switching between Korean alphabet and the ASCII alphabet. However, I was thinking about my parents, for example. This is an incredible barrier for using the internet. So having the IDN before the dot and behind the dot, and not only for the CCTLDs, but also for generic expression, gives a huge push to the internet in countries which, to be very honest, we from Europe, or probably also from the United States, don't really know. I see with these IDN movement also a very huge challenge for the registrars, because if we want to offer the new generic TLDs with IDN codes, then we have to learn very quickly how to do it, how to do the marketing for it, if we want to have it in our worldwide portfolio. This is a huge challenge for us. But it's necessary because it's, in my opinion, really demanded from the international market.
Thank you. Anything, Steve, to add to that, or Mike? No?
I think we're IDN'd out.
IDN'd out, okay. All right, so perhaps this is a good opportunity to see if anybody in the audience has got any questions to ask our panel at this stage. We're happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Olof Nordling, ICANN. A question to Thorsten. In your very introductory remark, you mentioned that, all right, in your crystal ball, you saw around about 1,000 applications, and around about 100 that would succeed according to some kind of measure. What do you mean that the other 900 would do? Would they fail in the application process, or would they succeed in the application and then survive and leading a more or less crap life according to the volume paradigm that I think you have? So if you could drill down on that a little bit, I would appreciate it.
Thanks for the question. I know that we are answering now a dangerous field, and please don't quote me on that. This is my personal opinion on it. Of course, I would love to see all new GTLDs being economically successful and all new registries doing well until infinity, and all registrars involved in the launches also doing well. However, I think there is a limiting factor, as I said, and we just don't have the resources to cover all new existing or all new TLD that will come out. And when I said 100, it was like an approximation just made by me, because I see Stefan told just how long it takes technically to implement an extension, but you also have to inform your customers, doing the PR work, set up the marketing program, and I don't see our teams working out this for 1,000, and even 100 might be too high. So of course the others, this is a good question for Mike. I think they cannot fail because they have to provide their business plan for at least 5 years financially stable. So I think there will be, let me put this way, there will be some extensions that will be successful. I don't see them as successful as the .infos from the second launch round in 2003. And I think that we will see registries struggle in meeting their own economical goals. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Do we have any others at this stage? Okay. We'll keep moving and I'll come back to you. Hopefully we'll trigger something that you want to ask more questions about. So just to go back to the IDN conversation before, I just think it's really difficult to know how the market is going to react to IDNs. It's still not a totally ubiquitous experience for all users, and obviously the intention is for it to be ubiquitous wherever you are in the globe, whichever language you're in. So, but they're mainly due to desktop software issues which are being resolved, and so it's going to be an interesting topic for us to be able to watch. Now, one of the things that fascinates me as a registry, and I don't have to worry about it too much at all as a registry and not a registrar, and I don't know how you manage this already, so let's talk about what the future looks like. There are currently nearly 300 different TLDs available all over the world at the moment, and I'm very curious to understand how you're going to, as a registrar, be able to create purchase flows within your storefronts that are going to be able to match up a prospective domain name registrant or a domain search with an available TLD, bearing in mind that you're going from potentially 300 to what could be 1,300 in 3 years' time. Have you put much thought into that, Thorsten?
Yes. I mean, even right now we have, as you're saying, Key Systems serves pretty much every CCTLD extension you can find on the planet. Also InterNetX does. You have to categorize the search results. You can do this geographically when you look at the different continents. You can do this under specific generic approaches, and this is what will happen. And I mean, we can only do the categorization when we see which names will be out there. When we see the first set of the 500s coming out, I don't know yet, Mike, how fast every one of them will be launched, one after the other. Yeah, so there will be a problem in listing the names, and there will be a problem on our shopping windows. Which one of them are we listing to the general public on our websites? I think this is also a fact that we have to take into account when we look at the search results, that there is even before a store problem. Yeah, there will be ways of offering these extensions, but by which categories, I can only say when I see the extensions.
Thanks, Thorsten. Stefan, please.
I would like to calm this a little bit down. We do have something like 300 to 400 looking at some secondary TLDs right now at the moment. However, in the near future, I don't see 1,300. My personal expectation is that quite a lot of the application probably will be brand TLDs, which will not be sold by registrars. So it's a single model there. So there the challenge won't be there for registrars to implement these TLDs into their processes. However, if there are, let's say, 1,000 applications, I definitely see something like 100 generically or generally sold, at least 100 top-level domains, which could be interesting for being integrated into the portfolios as quickly as possible. This is a challenge, but I see it in a number of about 100 in the next future, rather than 1,000 for registrars.
Thank you. Thanks, Stefan. And Mike, we talked a little bit before about brand TLDs that may wish to vertically integrate, but of course they still do need to become ICANN accredited registrars. But there are some registrars that I'm aware of that do wish to perhaps use their services just to be able to provide registrar services to brands that may only require one registrar. Can you talk a little bit about the ICANN accredited registrars that exist today, and perhaps some of those that actually choose to provide services to niche TLDs as opposed to the mass market TLDs?
So I think today, it's a fairly small handful of registrars who are selling exclusively a newer TLD, and I think the way that these relationships came about, is sort of unknown to me. But I think that there are there is a lot of competition in the Registrar Marketplace, and so I think that where there's opportunity, I think you'll find partnerships, and I think that and I don't think this is outside the bounds of treating all registrars equitably and fairly. I think that essentially you find registrars who are looking for a new form of business, and you find registries who are looking for a new channel, and so I think they just find natural relationships that way. And in fact, this is one of the ways that I think becoming a member of the ICANN community can be helpful, in that ICANN regularly hosts 3 meetings a year, and we have periodic regional gatherings in different parts of the country, where it's, in particular, these regional gatherings are where it's largely just registrars and registries. They have an opportunity to do networking, and the newer TLDs often do presentations to the registrars. So, and this is a very low-cost way to do marketing to registrars. So I think I answered the second part of your question. And I think, in terms of the first part, I won't speak to specific registrars. I think that, when you have vertically integrated, in particular in these brand TLDs, I think what you may see is registrars offering their back-end service. I think that that's probably more likely than an offering to sell through their registrar, their retail channel, I think, because there's certain differentiations between the branded TLDs and the rest, and so that's sort of what I would expect to happen. And quite a few of the registrars, in particular the larger ones, I think offer their back end as a service to anybody who's interested and meets their requirements. But as I say, I wouldn't go into specifics, probably more than that. But if you go to an ICANN meeting, there's often lots of materials in the sponsorship bag advertising all of those services.
Thank you, Mike. Now, one of the great, and any questions at this stage, please? Okay. So one of the most interesting things, I think, about new GTLDs are the fact that they're going to be able to create innovation and spur innovation and have real demand-generated TLDs, as opposed to sometimes supply, generated TLDs. And one of the things that it's going to be very possible for a new GTLD registry to do is to create applications and different products and services at a registry level that they then wish to distribute through the registrar channel. And I wanted Stefan and Thorsten to talk about this, but I thought we'd start off with Steve talking about this. Steve, obviously these new GTLDs, they do create opportunities for innovation and products, but you need to be very cognizant when you're releasing them as a registry that they don't compete with products that the registrars are already selling in their day-to-day business. Have you had much thought about types of applications that you wish to bundle potentially with new GTLDs, either because you're going to supply them as a registry, or because you know that the registrar channel is going to be able to build them to support them for you?
Oh, good question. I think for us, for Afilias, we're not looking to do any new innovation. I think for us, it's more about we have a registry service that, you as the applicant, you come to us, you tell us your innovation, and we'll do our best to form a relationship with you. But for any would-be registry that's, wants to do a TLD, you got to think about the relationship you have with the channel. You can't be an island. You have to have outreach. You have to be in contact with them. Let them know what's going on. If something's changing, you're changing your OT&E, or you're moving the timeline, or you're going to go from 1 sunrise to 7 sunrises, you got to have that relationship with the registrars, because they're your lifeblood. They need to know about these things. And, if you do have some innovation, that's great, and it's something that the market would want, but you got to be cognizant of, the registrars, they have their own timelines too. Their development schedule in many cases is more than 3 months long. So there's difficulties for them to just change it because, you decided you had some change. So you really need to mind the relationship with the registrars.
Thanks a lot, Steve. I think that's a good point. And Stefan, yes, I would like to hear what you think about that.
Regarding some new ideas which come with new TLDs, I personally see basically 3 aspects. So one might be some kind of technological, which we saw in the past, for example, with the TLD.tel, which was supposed to be a directory, a contact directory. I personally think this is a very interesting idea. However, in the practical market, I don't see very much success on this. So if the new idea goes into technology, I doubt whether they will be successful. Another aspect which I see regarding a new idea and innovation is the charity aspect. So the session right before us was the HIV initiative, combining TLD with the charity aspect. So this personally is a interesting idea which could be very successful. I'm very anxious to see how the reality works. And a last point for innovation, which is already there, is basically the community aspect, to kind of differentiate certain groups of people or certain interest groups. So if you look at the globalized world, there is this saying of think global, act local. And with these new TLDs, this is some kind of brought to the global international internet, that some kind of localization takes place, either really geographic or with the interest groups. And this, at least the last two innovations, for example, charity, or for localized communities, they don't have any technical complications, and I see a good chance that we will see new models, interesting new models in the future. I'm anxious to see what the applications will be.
Thank you, Stefan. Thorsten.
As I said before, I think there will be a change in the registrar market, and new registries cannot expect that they will be listed in every shop system. So they have to work out a individual relationship with individual registrars to bring their product out. And it would be great to see new applications and new features together with a DNS or together with a domain name. However, I'm quite sure that we will not have a 90% or 100% coverage on the global market when it comes to almost 1,000 registrars out there. So I think this is the new optimizing sales channels means a lot of work for the new generic domain names, and I think that already the existing established registries have a hard time to bring out new features. I think there are certain products when it comes to translate an existing domain name to a mobile screen. I don't want to drop names here, but I think it's not that adopted by the market as the registries thought it might be. So again, it will be a hard time, and it's a lot of work then for the registries to find their market and to work with probably a rather individual set of registrars.
Thanks, Thorsten, and all of you, that's really good food for thought. Before I move on to my last question, I'd be happy to replace that with any question from the audience that you might wish to ask our panel, particularly if you're a potential applicant and you're thinking about, you may have a specific question about how to leverage the channel effectively. I can keep talking forever, unfortunately, as some would say. Okay, so let's finish then on talking about renewals. I think renewals are incredibly important. There's no point in taking on and registering a whole load of domain names in year one if they all start falling out of the bottom and they don't renew in subsequent years. We also know that once a domain name registrant has renewed their domain name once, statistically they're much more likely to renew again, and the renewal rate for second-time renewers is significantly increased. For the benefit of potential new GTLD applicants and thinking about how you will deal with renewals, Thorsten, do you have any hints or advice that you could provide to new GTLD applicants about the importance of those renewals and perhaps some things that they might be able to do to help you?
So renewals are absolutely crucial. It doesn't bring anything to have a big launch and the year after everything, the whole portfolio of names gets deleted. Okay, you can launch renewal campaigns. You can have a general awareness campaign within the market. You can spend some marketing dollars together with the registrars to lower probably the renewal fee. However, this all brings nothing if the core concept of your TLD is not working. And I think most crucially is that you have a great strategy, that you have a great string, and that you have a real market that you will serve with your TLD. You can try as hard as you can, but no one will renew a domain name if it's not important to keep it.
Thank you. Stefan?
Yes, don't take this for serious. It's very easy for registrars to have a lot of renewals, just make the cancellation process very complicated for the customer. Sorry, was meant as a joke. No, it has already been said today that there has to be a community for a TLD. So if there is no TLD, there won't be any demand, and there's no sense in having renewals. So the crucial point is the TLD itself must be interesting for the community, for the topic they're talking about, for the value add they offer, and then the renewal will come automatically.
Thank you, Stefan. Steve?
To me, it actually comes down to use. They have to use the name. If they spend $1 to get it or $29, I can't even think of how many times I've rented a movie and never watched it. Or I went to some website and bought some bauble or software or something, and I ended up never using it. And I wasted 29 bucks here, 30 bucks there, 5 bucks. It doesn't matter. But that actually correlates to this as well. If the customers, they'll buy it in year one, granted, that's done. But when year two comes around, or the renewal comes around, like, oh, geez, I forgot I bought that. I don't need it. So I'm not going to renew it. And now your sales cycle's dead. So you really want to focus on some kind of value proposition that gets the end users using the name, that helps the registry, that helps the registrar. Everyone's happy.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Any questions before we break up? Well, I want to thank all of the panelists. You did a great job of answering all of the questions. It's a very complex subject, and I'm sure that the audience learned a lot. And I would just like to invite the audience to come to speak to all of us. I know the panel's interested in speaking to you after this, as am I, so enjoy the rest of the event, and thank you very much.
Many thanks to you, Sarah, for taking us through those nuts and bolts. Those were great questions. I think the audience didn't need to pose a single question because you really did it all. That's not the only nuts and bolts we have for you today. When we come back from our coffee break, we're going to get an equally comprehensive look at the application process, how to do it, with two of the world's reigning experts on the subject. So we're looking forward to that after the break. 30 minutes, and then we'll all reconvene in this room, so you have time to grab a cup of coffee outside, and please be back at 1:15. Channel A and Channel B, again, proceeding simultaneously there, so I'll give you a hint on Channel B when we return. Thanks again to all of you, panelists, and to Sarah Langstone.